Microsoft Teams live broadcast is being recorded. It will be available for future viewing on our internal RACO Central Office Hispanic Heritage Month Microsoft Teams. To enable Microsoft Teams closed captioning, with your mouse pointer, hover over the three dots and click More Options in the Team menu. Then select CC Turn On Live Captioning. During the Q&A portion of the event, you may type comments or a question on the chat box. Let's go to the next. And welcome to the Hispanic Heritage Month Observance. The theme for this year is Esperanza, a celebration of Hispanic heritage hope. And now we have Monica Rivera. She's the Chief Stakeholder and Organizational Change Management, Benefit Delivery Protection and Remediation, Office of Finance Management. Monica?
Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you all. I want to welcome you to this year's program. As it was mentioned in the introduction of our program, our theme this year is Esperanza, a celebration of Hispanic heritage and hope. It is truly an honor to be here with all of you. As a Hispanic VA employee, I'm full of pride in our organization for making this celebration happen every year. I am sure you will enjoy today's program and share with me the sense of pride and hope for our Hispanic leaders. Let me introduce to you our chair, our Hispanic Heritage Month Chair Program, Mr. William Vargas. He's the IT specialist for the Office of Information and Technology, and he's currently on the staff for Information Technology Workforce. William, the floor is yours.
Well, I just wanted to thank everybody here. Thank you for participating on the VA Central Office Hispanic Month. I'm sorry, we're going through some technical difficulties right now, but I just want to kind of move forward and welcome everybody for this Hispanic Heritage Month celebration. And we got a full menu, full program right now. So I'm going to move forward and let Monica continue.
Thank you, William. We also have with us Mr. Dwyane Campbell. He joined the Center for Minority Veterans as a program analyst in November 2009, and he served as the Center Veterans Liaison for the Hispanic American Veterans Community. As a liaison for the Hispanic American Veterans Community, he's constantly engaged in different events that promote cultural diversity. He also identifies issues that are unique and affect the Hispanic American veteran community. Thank you so much, Dwyane, for everything that you have done for this program and for the Hispanic community. Now, next, I want to introduce Ms. Sara Rosario Nieves. She is the Chief of Strategic Planning and Portfolio Management staff. She works for the United States Census Bureau and the Decennial Communications and Coordination Office. Sara will be interpreting the national anthem. Sara.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed, a dead twilight's less gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight were the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rocked the bombs bursting in air, gave proof a star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you so much, Sara. That was beautiful. And now next, we have our National BA Chaplain, guest from the Veterans Health Administration, Ms. David A. Zavala.
Well, good day to each one of you. Welcome. This year's Hispanic Heritage Month theme is Esperanza, a celebration of Hispanic heritage and hope. Esperanza means hope. So let's welcome God to be among us and appeal to him to be our source of hope. Well, I extend an invitation to each one of you to join me in a word of prayer. Let's pray. Well, gracious God, we welcome you in our midst as we prepare to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. While we pause to acknowledge your presence and to express our gratefulness to you for our abundant grace. You have blessed us with so much, including the privilege of living in a free and strong nation where cultural diversity is fostered and respected and where the Hispanic heritage is appreciated. As we celebrate the proud Hispanic heritage, well, we ask that you would look with favor upon us and honor these four requests. First of all, continue to bless and protect our nation, which draws its strength and unity from cultural diversity of its people. Second, bless our local communities, which have pockets of strong Hispanic heritage, as well as a fervent passion for military members and veterans. Third, we'll continue to anoint all of our VA healthcare teams throughout our nation so that they can continue to provide quality healthcare to our veterans. And fourth, prompt our employees, veterans, and volunteers to realize that you are our hope, our esperanza, when life's challenges discourage us. Just as the psalmist writes in Psalm 62, my soul, wait in silence for God alone, for my hope is from him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my refuge. I will not be shaken. Now, God, we ask that you would bless the efforts of the Hispanic Heritage Month Committee who coordinated this worthwhile event. Please find favor with our speakers and bless their words as they teach and encourage us. And for all of our participants, please bless us richly in every facet of our lives, our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and social well-being, so that we can continue to worship you and serve our community. Amen.
Thank you, David. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our 11th Secretary of Veterans Affairs, the Honorable Denis McDonough. Before coming to the VA, Secretary McDonough served as the 26th White House Chief of Staff, working across the cabinet to develop and execute critical U.S. priorities in national security and domestic policy. And in that role, and others during his tenure in the White House, including at the National Security Council, he helped lead the administration's work on behalf of veterans and military families. He believes deeply that it's our shared, sacred obligation to uphold our promises to our veterans, whether they came home decades ago or days ago. Join me in welcoming our Secretary, Denis McDonough.
Good afternoon, everyone. Monica, thanks for that very kind introduction. And more importantly, thank you for your 16 years of service at VA. William and all the members of the planning committee, as the chaplain just prayed, thank you for making this celebration possible. Special thanks to Secretary of the Navy, Carlos Del Toro, General Rico Aponte, and VA's own Deputy Chief of Staff and my good friend, Chris Diaz. Thank you all so much for sharing your experiences and your insights today and helping make this afternoon the great celebration it so rightfully is. Y entonces a los empleados que hablan español, les deseo un feliz mes nacional de la herencia hispana. Gracias por su servicio a los veteranos. Me alegro de celebrar su herencia, que es nuestra esperanza, con ustedes. Thank you all for being here and for all that you do and do so well. It's an honor to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month with each of you. I want to honor this day and in fact this month by sharing one story of an Hispanic American veteran, a hero who captures so much of what this month means, so much of what your lives of service mean, and what it means, in fact, to be an American. His name was Staff Sergeant Lucian Adams. Raised in Port Arthur, Texas, Lucian grew up in a big Mexican-American family, one of 12 brothers and sisters, even bigger than mine of 11 brothers and sisters. As a young man, times were tough. He had to drop out of high school to help support his family. And then he did his part to help support freedom and defend this country, to defend our freedom. Maybe even freedoms that he and his family didn't fully celebrate because they weren't able to. And not only he, but 7 of his brothers took that courageous step. In World War II, he helped liberate Italy in January 1944, and was awarded a Bronze Star for his courage in that battle and a Purple Heart for his sacrifice. But that's just where the story of service begins. In October of the same year, Lucian's commander called on him to lead the company's attack and break the German lines that had isolated another battalion. Alone, barely 22 years old, he charged tree to tree in the face of withering machine gun fire with grenades splintering the branches above him. And firing his Browning automatic rifle from the hip, he killed 9 Germans, destroyed 3 machine gun nests, defeated the enemy, and reopened the supply lines to the cut-off companies. I guess there's a reason that they called him the Tornado from Texas. For his heroism, Staff Sergeant Lucian Adams received the Medal of Honor on March 29, 1945. Now that alone would have been an amazing life of service. But again, he, like so many of you, kept serving. After the war, Lucian joined VA in 1946. He became a benefits counselor in San Antonio. Why San Antonio, so far from his home in Port Arthur? He said it was because of the great number of Hispanics that served who lived in San Antonio. He said, I thought I would be helpful in seeing that they received their just benefits that were due to them under the GI Bill. That's what this quiet American hero did for 40 years until he retired in 1986. He served his fellow veterans, like each of you. Staff Sergeant Adams passed in 2003, buried with the full military honors he earned and so richly deserved. Today he rests under the faithful watch of his VA family, our cemetery caretakers, in the Fort Sam Houston National Cemetery in San Antonio. A pristine headstone only begins to tell his beautiful story. Beloved father and grandfather, Purple Heart, Bronze Star, and Medal of Honor, U.S. Army, World War II. You know, I'm proud to call him a fellow American, and I'm honored to work with each of you to honor him and all of our veterans. And I tell this story today because, as President Biden explained recently, Hispanic heritage is American heritage. From serving in World War II to helping veterans at VA to resting in our national cemetery, Staff Sergeant Adams' life is the embodiment of that fact. a young boy from a Mexican-American family who fought for the American dream, then lived the American dream, and then fought for countless veterans to live the American dream themselves. And though I tell his story, he's just one of 61 Hispanic American Medal of Honor recipients, from the Civil War to World Wars I and II, to Korea and Vietnam, and to the war that just ended in Afghanistan. And he's just one example of the more than 62 million people of Hispanic heritage who have made and continue to make the nation the diverse, vibrant, strong country it is. They are our family members, our colleagues on this call. They are doctors, nurses, first responders like police and firefighters, lawyers, artists, teachers, engineers. They lead this nation on every level, as you'll hear in a minute, including as Secretary of the Navy, and represent all walks of life. They're defending our nation abroad and fighting for progress at home, the very best fabric of this nation. Like Sergeant Adams before them, they are what make, you are what make this nation not just home, but the strong home that it is. Having said that, it's important to recognize that we have lots of work to do to make VA home for veterans and employees of Hispanic heritage. Employees and veterans like you. We're short of where we need to be in recruiting, in hiring, in training, in retaining, from the entry level to the very top. That's one reason why in April I asked Chris Diaz, who you'll hear from us in a second, to launch our 120-day task force on inclusion, diversity, equity, and access, IDEA. That report will be on my desk soon. And I'm committed to making VA look like the veterans we serve, to making VA look like the nation that our veterans defended. Because when President Biden says that Hispanic American heritage is American heritage, it's not a statement about the past. It's a call to action for the present. A reminder that it's my job, it's our job, to make sure our VA workforce reflects Hispanic American heritage, to serve all Hispanic veterans, their families, caregivers, survivors, and VA employees, as well as you, serve us. That's our most sacred obligation. Like Staff Sergeant Adams once said, we at VA serve those who have served, and they're entitled to the best. May we always remember that. And may we all serve our country and Hispanic veterans with the same kind of devotion that Staff Sergeant Lucian Adams represents. Y este mes, y cada mes, que siempre les demos a ustedes, a nuestros veteranos hispanos, familias, cuidadores y sobrevivientes hispanos, lo mejor de nosotros. Thank you all very much. Again, thank you for making VA the strong fabric of the American experience that it is. Thanks to your great diversity and strength. Monica, back to you.
Thank you, Secretary. Now, with us, we'll have the Secretary of Navy, Carlos del Toro. The Honorable Carlos del Toro has his priorities very straight, including securing the training and equipment successful naval operations demand and addressing the most pressing challenges confronting the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps: China, naval ambitions, climate instability, COVID ongoing impact, and strengthening a naval culture of inclusiveness and respect. Born in Havana, Cuba, Del Toro immigrated to the U.S. with his family as refugees in 1962. Raised in Hell's Kitchen neighborhood of New York City, he attended public schools and received an appointment to the United States Naval Academy, where he earned a bachelor's degree of science degree in electrical engineering. Secretary Del Toro was commissioned commissioned as a surface warfare officer upon his graduation in 1983. Please join me in welcoming our Secretary of Navy, Carlos del Toro.
Thank you so much, Monica. And let me first apologize for not being able to be on video today, but I assure you that you're not missing much. Mr. Secretario, Secretary McDonough, I must say first and foremost that I am very impressed with your strong command of the Spanish language, sir. And I now look forward to continuing to engage with you in Spanish moving on. Muchísimas gracias, Secretaria, por su apoyo a nuestra comunidad hispanoamericano. And I want to thank all the great Americans, quite frankly, at the Department of Veterans Affairs for keeping America's promise to all who serve. Today, I'm excited to be part of this event on behalf of all the proud Hispanic sailors and Marines that stand watch around the world. And I know from personal experience in working with you, because for 15 years, I worked very much by your side as a small business partner in what I will always consider my beloved VA family. And I'm now proud to serve as your 78th Secretary of the Navy. Nearly 1 in every 4 Marines is Hispanic, over 52,000. There are over 67,000 Hispanics today serving in our Navy, 16% of the fleet. It really is extraordinary when you stop and think about that. And many of their stories are very much like my own story, as Monica briefly mentioned. My family arrived in this country with little more than a dream and a determination to build a better life. My father worked 2 jobs his entire life, while my mother worked at a purse factory and later as a hotel maid in New York City, simply to make ends meet. It was my abuela who watched me during the day in our Hell's Kitchen tenement building until I was old enough to attend public school. And from there, I took the values of that my family had taught me about hard work, about dignity, respect, and the power of education to an appointment at the United States Naval Academy. Throughout my 25 years in uniform and another 17 years as a business and community leader, I saw the extraordinary talent of young Hispanic Americans and the many challenges that they still face today. I witnessed how education and mentoring can change the course of a young person's life. And I saw how our nation benefits when all of our people have a fair chance to excel. And as the Secretary so well stated in his own comments, this month and every month, we must remember that the service of proud Hispanic Americans throughout our history. Many others include submariners like Captain Marion Frederick Ramirez de Arellano, who served with distinction beneath the Pacific waves throughout World War II. Medal of Honor recipients like First Lieutenant Baldomero Lopez, who was the first Marine up the seawall at Incheon. And aviators like Lieutenant Commander Albert Alvarez Jr., who endured 8 years of brutal captivity in North Vietnam. And then also leaders like my friend Major General Angie Salinas, the first Latina general officer in the United States Marine Corps. Today, as Secretary, I'm determined to expand the ladder of opportunity for all who serve in the wake of these great Americans. We must build a culture where all who serve are treated with dignity, with respect, and the opportunity to lead. And when their service is completed, we must ensure that each of them and their families have the resources and support that they need to continue thriving and contributing to this grateful nation. And so, I'm looking forward to today's panel discussion, to working with each and every one of you in the days and months and years ahead. And so to all my very beloved VA family members, and I miss you so very much, I say muchas gracias from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for including me in today's program. And Mr. Secretary, I so much look forward to working with you on so many different policy initiatives and things that we can do collectively together to make the VA experience for our veterans so much better. Thank you so much for including me today, sir. And thank you, Monica.
Thank you, Secretary del Toro. And now with us, I want to introduce our senior host, Mr. Chris Diaz. Mr. Diaz is the Deputy of Chief of Staff for the White House. And White House liaison, and is a veteran of the United States Navy. During his service in the Navy from 2007 to 2012, has an aviation boatswain made Ann Dan a Fleet Marine Corps Hospital Corpsman. He saw duty aboard the USS Harry S. Truman and in support of the Operation Enduring Freedom and deployed with the 6 Marines to Marhat in the Helmand province of Afghanistan. With us today, Mr. Chris Diaz.
Thank you for that kind introduction, Monica, and good afternoon, team. For those who understand me, buenas tardes, mi gente. Es un privilegio celebrar este evento con ustedes hoy. While I admit I'd prefer if we were all in a room together instead of communicating via screens, there's nothing like that Latino passion. I'm grateful that we've had an opportunity, even during an ongoing pandemic, where we can leverage technology and make time to connect on celebrations like this one. For all the Latinos on the call, ours is a story of progress. Please allow me to highlight through my personal experience how your work has impacted my family and I. Because in a very tangible way, I'm standing here today because of you and your work. Back in 2012, when I was in the process of separating from the United States Navy, there was this thing called a backlog. And I was first introduced to the VA through a program called TAP, which was allowing service members who were transitioning out to learn information about the benefits that were provided to veterans. I was able to take this thing called a CMP exam while still on active duty so that my transition would be smoothed over. When I got out, I started pursuing an education, first with the GI Bill for my undergraduate work, followed by what was then called vocational rehab, where I was able to earn postgraduate education, all without having to burden my family with student loans. The very home that I live in right now is a testament to the VA home loan. This is just a small way in how VBA has played a role in my path. Like many service members who return from war, my body and mind needed healing. That's when VHA stepped in, and the physicians and nurses and clinicians helped me through my own process and transition. In preparation for today's event, I actually learned that 2 of my uncles, Isaías and David Diaz, who served overseas in the United States Army in Korea and died tragically in a car accident while on leave, long before I was born. They were both laid to rest at the National Cemetery in Long Island. I know that when the time comes, NCA will be there for me as well. If you had asked me back in 2007 when I enlisted in the world's finest Navy, if I'd be in the position speaking at an event with the Secretary of the VA and the current Secretary of the Navy, who is also Latino, well, I wouldn't have believed it. See, the VA has helped make that all possible for me. That's why I share this personal story with you. My progress really isn't about me, but about you and how each of you are enriching the lives of the thousands of vets who identify Latino. The theme for this month, as the chaplain stated at the outset, esperanza, or hope, must be more than a sentiment. The speakers on this event arrived where they are because they put action behind their and their parents' and their grandparents' hope. It's true that our people have come very far, and we must all recognize that there's more work to be done. We all play a role in advancing hope for those who need it most. That's what each of you do, day in and day out. Thank you to each of you for being a driving force behind the American dream. I'm humbled to represent you and work alongside you on this most worthy of missions. Gracias y le deseo paz y salud. Over to you, Monica.
Thank you so much, Chris. And now let me introduce our speaker today, Mr. Rico Aponte, who is our retired General Chief Operating Officer from the American College of National Security Leaders, Executive Director, Hispanic Veterans Leadership Alliance. General Aponte is a graduate of the University of Puerto Rico Mayagüez campus in civil engineering and has 2 master's degrees, American History and Management Science. His previous military posting culminated in a 34-year career in the U.S. Air Force. He was the Director of Experimentation and Innovation at the U.S. Southern Command, where he also served as the Deputy Director of Operations. He is presently the Chief Operating Officer at the American College of National Security Leaders, a Washington, D.C.-based think tank. Aponte also serves in the board of directors of the Hispanic Veterans Leadership Alliance, where he is responsible for advising the U.S. Air Force on mentoring, retention, and promotion programs to improve the career possibilities of Hispanics. Mr. Ricardo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Monica, for a very kind introduction. First, I would like to propose a toast to Sergeant Adams and the other 60 members of the U.S. military that won the Medal of Honor. I would like to start my life story by sharing with you a poem by Gustavo Adolfo Becker, written in the 19th century, titled Un poema de esperanza. Fingiendo realidades con sombra vana, delante del deseo va la esperanza. My crude English translation: pretentious reality, casting a waning shadow, before your desires, ahead leads hope. Esperanza Burguet Quesada was born in Bayamo, Cuba in 1883, the daughter of a Spanish military family that later moved to Ponce, Puerto Rico in the 1890s. Commander Burguet held the post of customs officer at the port in Ponce. Of course, we all know that in 1898, the United States invaded both Puerto Rico and Cuba as part of the Spanish-American War. After the war, Esperanza's parents returned to Spain, leaving behind in Puerto Rico she and 5 brothers and sisters. You see, Esperanza had married at a tender age another immigrant, Don Julio Blasini, a Corsican that came to the island in the middle of the 19th century. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of part of my family, the story of many families that named their daughters Esperanza, a hope that in the new world they would find happiness, free from European pandemics and wars, and destined to find a bounty of opportunities. Now, all of us are born with that proverbial fire in our belly, the need to reach a level of accomplishment that satisfies your most ardent desires. I, for one, wanted to play right field for the Pittsburgh Pirates and be able to throw people out in first base like my boyhood hero, Roberto Clemente. Yet that did not come to pass, and eventually I moved to determined to get a good education and make something of my life. I was fortunate. My parents could afford a private school education. It was during this stage in life, mentored by brother Joseph Everhart, that my dreams literally took flight. In 7 short years, I graduated from high school and college and was commissioned as second lieutenant in the United States Air Force. With the Vietnam War winding down in 1972, after my graduation as a civil engineer, the pace of pilot training in the Air Force had slowed down. It was not until 1973 that I attended pilot training at Moody Air Force Base in Georgia and graduated a year later. Finally, I flew modern aircraft that I always dreamed of flying. I still remember fondly that first solo flight in the supersonic T-38 as the airplane passed 100 knots on the runway, when I told myself, Rico, what the hell are you doing here? Throughout the year, the personnel leading the course and my assigned instructors were very supportive of their learning program. In the end, I was assigned to my first choice of airplanes, the supersonic fighter bomber known by the Vietnamese as Whispering Death, the F-111 stationed at Cannon Air Force Base in New Mexico. I arrived at Cannon in August of 1974 and was assigned to the 523rd Tactical Fighter Squadron, the Crusaders. I found out soon enough that my F-111 training would be delayed until the following year so I assumed duties in the ground training section of the squadron. While waiting for training, I attended fighter leading course that Tactical Air Command gave their fighter pilots at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico. This training was a rigorous introduction into tactics, bombing, and air-to-air combat, which I enjoyed tremendously. However, that was the last time I attended a career development course while on active duty. As you will see later in my narrative, this fact played a major part in career success while on active duty. After vacation I took in September 1975, I returned to the squadron to find out that my additional duty as ground training officer was given to a junior pilot, and my new job was snack bar officer, otherwise called pejoratively sink snack. This water boy job is traditionally given to the junior officer in the squadron, which I was not. I remained in the demeaning additional duty assignment until I left the squadron for aircraft commander training in 1977. Almost 1.5 years on the job. Another slight that happened while at the 523rd was related to professional training. I had received word that I would attend Squadron Officer School at Maxwell Air Force Base, a course designed for junior officers. However, my assigned slot was canceled and given to a different officer in the squadron. I never attended SOS in residence after that. Throughout the years assigned to the 523rd, I still remained excited to be flying a jet fighter, and I was blind to the fact that I was the victim of discrimination. I encountered my second period of successful career advancement when I reported to aircraft commander training in 1977. Finally, I was the pilot in charge, and mistakes, if any, were my responsibility. After uneventful training, I reported to a different squadron, the 522nd Fireballs. There I spent a year of duty, was received warmly by the squadron leadership, and was tasked with a demanding additional duty, the planning of the aircraft's first overseas deployment to Bodo, Norway. As a result, I felt an admiration to the staff and to the squadron that lasts to this day. After 4 years in New Mexico, I moved on to RAF Lakenheath in the United Kingdom, flying the F-111 aircraft. There again, I was treated fairly, and my career improved to the point that I quickly became flight lead qualified and was assigned to the training squadron as an instructor pilot. Even though my commanders and other leaders in those two squadrons I worked for were appreciative of my work and never ruled against my career expectations, three things do stand out. At Lakenheath, I was not selected again for Squadron Officer School or Fighter Weapons School. That second one would open doors to command of squadrons in later years. 2 assignments later, I was approaching my 15th year in active duty. I made the bold choice to leave active duty and join the Air Force Reserve. Sadly, many other Hispanics are forced to make similar decisions due to poor or non-existent mentoring, a lack of professional education options, and limited assignments as unit commanders. That last one puts a nail in the coffin to your promotion opportunities. However, I was fortunate enough to have a reputation as a political military staff officer and a bold international negotiator. That reputation landed me a job in the reserves, at the Air Staff, at the Pentagon, and still a major. I left the building 13 years later as a newly promoted Brigadier General with an active duty assignment as the Deputy Director of Operations of the United States Southern Command in Miami. So I leave you today with a few pearls of wisdom. I first adopted a life motto during my Reserve Officer Training Corps, ROTC years. It was never say impossible, and it has guided me through 34 years of officership. It was always on my mind when flying difficult missions in fighter airplanes. It steered me when planning international events like the first Defense Ministerial of the Americas, and for 2 tours of the United States Air Force Thunderbirds in South America. And also when responding to international events such as the Organization of American States, stabilization of the political situation in Haiti in 2004. But more importantly, never say impossible was first on my mind after witnessing the aircraft explosion on 9/11 in the Pentagon. Starting that day, I spent more time on active duty as an officer than flying aircraft for United Airlines. Lastly, I ask you to personally manage your career. If you're missing a good mentor, mentor yourself. Today, aided by technology, there are many self-help activities you can do. This includes academic courses you may take to improve management skills. If stuck in a position that your advancement possibilities are few, take the fork on the road that offers the best chance for success. Like Esperanza Blasini's family did in the middle of the 19th century, take a chance, climb over obstacles, and solve problems without controversy, always using your diplomatic skills. That way you give hope, Esperanza, a chance. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you so much, General Rico. And now let's move to the next part of our program. Very happy to introduce our panelists for the next half an hour. First, we have with us Aileen Velez Vega. Aileen's expertise is the design and construction of airport infrastructure for commercial and general aviation airports, as well as management of multidisciplinary projects and business development. She also advocates for women in STEAM fields and has also served in the Women in Aviation International Board of Directors in Puerto Rico and the Puerto Rico Colegio de Ingenieros y Agrimensores. She began her historic role in January 2020 and established her public policy to lead the Department of Transportation and Public Works towards a new future, in addition to contributing to the development and improvement of Puerto Rico's infrastructure. Finally, in May 2021, she was confirmed by the Senate to become the first woman to occupy the position as Secretary of Department of Transportation and Public Works. Welcome, Aileen.
Gracias, Mónica. Buenas tardes a todos. Saludos desde Puerto Rico. It is such an honor to be here with all of you today and to have Mónica, which we're friends, do the introduction. I am super excited to be here with all of you today. Thank you for the opportunity, and I feel honored speaking on amongst all of you and listening your stories. And I want to share a little bit of mine. So I'm from Puerto Rico, born and raised in Sabana Grande, which is a small town on the west coast of Puerto Rico. As somebody mentioned, also first generation, I'm the first engineer in the family. My parents were surprised when la nena quería estudiar ingeniería because it was not a usual thing to see in our family. And I'm proud and very honored that they supported me and that I am an engineer today. The story and the path has not been easy. I think that a lot of us will agree that sometimes we doubt ourselves and what we're going to do and can we do this and can I do this? So for myself, I always had very supportive parents and I had a really good support system. So perseverance and just knowing that even though it wasn't going to be easy, I could get somewhere. So I'll tell you my quick story and just some of the points of where it became real and true of where I am today. As Monica mentioned, I am the Secretary of the Department of Transportation and Public Works of Puerto Rico, the first woman to be to take on this role. The department has a history of about 104 years, and I joke around with my staff, it only took 104 years for a woman to lead the Department of Transportation and Public Works in Puerto Rico. But definitely there are many challenges. For all of you that are from Puerto Rico, you know that we are going through some challenges, especially after Hurricane Maria in 2017. But we cannot lose hope, right? Esperanza. Before I start talking about my experience, in women in STEM fields, and this is something I'm very passionate and a big advocate for, of young girls going into engineering and STEM fields, because right now, Latinas in STEM fields, we are about 3% of the total workforce, which means that many times we're the first. And I was always in the understanding that I might go into a project or I might go into a program, and I wouldn't see a lot of people that had my background or that looked like me. And so I grew up understanding that it is okay to be the first and go and be the pioneer, and that representation was important. And if I didn't see someone that looked like me, or I didn't see myself reflected in those that were leading, then I would be the leader, and then I would inspire the next generation. And that's how I've taken on my life. I have a 10-year-old daughter, and she sees me as the inspiration and as a role model, as well as I've done many activities and events and programs with the Society of Women Engineers and a lot of outreach experiences for youth, because I believe, again, representation is important, and we never know who we're going to inspire with our story. I grew up in Sabana Grande. I went to the University of Puerto Rico at Mayagüez. That's where I did my bachelor's degree. I did my master's degree in Mississippi State University. Before going into my full-time job as an engineer, I did an internship at NASA Marshall Space Flight Center in Alabama, in Huntsville, Alabama. And that pretty much was the foundation for my life as an engineer and how I became so passionate about aviation and aerospace. I was at NASA for 2 years. When I graduated college, I went to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in Vicksburg, Mississippi. And so for all of us Hispanics, Latinos, going from our hometown, from our countries to go and live in the US or anywhere else in the world, that's a huge step and a big culture shock. And so Puerto Rico and Mississippi are a little different. So that was an adjustment period. And it was a great opportunity. And I was honored to be working with the Army Corps of Engineers. I worked as a research civil engineer in the Airfields and Pavements branch. So I traveled the United States and going to military bases to do research on pavements for military operations around the world. I also visited other bases around the world. So it was a great start to my career. 3 years after, my husband and I decided to move closer to home. So we moved to Florida, and I started working with Kimley Horn, which is a company that a civil engineering consultant firm. And so I went from military bases to civil commercial airports and with general aviation. So I continued my life as a transportation engineer in the aviation world. I was there for about 15 years, and the last 7 years of my career at Kimley Horn were in Puerto Rico. I was able to open the first Puerto Rico office that the company had, and I'm here. I'm back home. It was a privilege. It was a great challenge to come back to Puerto Rico, establish a company from the ground up with an amazing team, but also many challenges. And that was during the Hurricane Maria. So I dedicated my life and my career to design and construction of airports, of highways, and other infrastructure as well. I believe civil engineers, we have that power to influence and benefit society with our work. So that's why I went into civil engineering. I thought I would be involved in people's daily lives. And that's what I do now, because Puerto Rico's transportation is in my hands with my team. And I think that's an amazing opportunity for us to have positive changes and to help the infrastructure that has been severely affected after the hurricane and by many years of pure maintenance and neglect. So that is a big challenge that I have now as a secretary. In November of last year, I was doing my work as a civil engineer as I was here on the island, and I got a special call. And that call was from a friend that thought that I would be a great candidate to be the next Secretary of DTOP, the Department of Transportation and Public Works in Puerto Rico. So I listened. I was a little hesitant. I thought, I'm going to be in the press and I'm going to be a public figure and I have a family and what's going to happen and oh my goodness. But I accepted the challenge and the honor. And so that's how I became the DTOP secretary. Monica mentioned in May, I was confirmed by Senate, which was an amazing day. And right now in Puerto Rico, we have many available funds for recovery after Maria. So that is my priority as secretary, is maximizing federal funds so that we can recover Puerto Rico's transportation systems. And it's not just the roads, it's a transportation, mass transit, it's everything, the whole integrated system of Puerto Rico's roads. We have about 8,142 kilometers of state roads in Puerto Rico, and our department is responsible for about 95% of those state roads. And if you've been on the island, we still have a lot of challenges after Hurricane Maria. So that is definitely my priority, and also establishing long-term maintenance, which is some of the issues we've had in the past. So our hands are full, but I think that there is esperanza in what we have to do. I'm very committed to my work. We have an amazing team of employees and a lot of great people in the department that are going to work with me so that we can help Puerto Rico recover and to have a safe and efficient transportation system. So before I finish, I think it's important that there is power in the unexpected and perseverance. Many years ago, as I was starting my family, I had a big health issue that I had to overcome. And I've been a survivor for 10 years, a cancer survivor for 10 years. So I always believe that we have to overcome challenges. And I know many of you in the VA know exactly what I'm talking about. So I love the theme of esperanza, because that's what we have and we can't lose it. I think that throughout my career as an engineer, I always had faith and esperanza and hope that I could make a positive change, that I could be a successful engineer, and that I could make my family proud, and Puerto Rico as well. And that's what I've done through preparation and a lot of hard work. So I think that we never lose that hope. We always continue to do better, and we also thrive, especially when things get tough. So felicidades a todos en el mes de la herencia hispana. I'm excited to be here with all of you. Thank you so much. Many blessings. And hopefully you will all come and visit us in Puerto Rico soon.
Muchas gracias, Eileen. And next, as part of our panel, we have David D.P. Pineda. David is a U.S. Army disabled veteran, is the founder of the online community Veterans Network, host and producer of numerous online streaming shows dedicated to topics and issues concerning veterans and active duty military personnel. He's also an entrepreneur of numerous personal growth and service products, including upcoming resources for disabled veterans who would like assistance with filing for rating increases with the VA. He's spearheaded the development and growth of multi-million-dollar projects that impact thousands of users. He's an investor, an educator, and an author, and a mentor. David, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everybody. I think we're good now. Can you hear me all?
Yes, we
Perfect.
can.
Thank you very much. Greetings to everybody watching both live and on the replay. I think the theme today is amazing. My name is David D.P. Pineda. I'm a first-generation Dominican, born in the United States. My parents immigrated to this company with the hope, with the esperanza of creating something better, of pushing forward to something. I'm a disabled veteran. I'm a retired federal air marshal. And after 9/11, being a first responder, I was in New York City as well. Joined the National Guard. I was there, went on to serve, went on to deploy and do many things in service that I did not know as a 17-year-old kid coming into service. You see I wear a hat, and you see that I wear a sweater that says disabled veteran. And the reason I'm saying that is because if you'll see on the screen, my service dog legend is probably one of the better things that most people like to talk about when they know us over at veteransnetwork.club. But I say this to say that one of the things I think we need to definitely do, and my life's focus, is about being transparent and talking about what needs to happen. In the veteran community, I've said sometimes, especially the Latin community, there's no word, I would say at times, for mental health. And I think the way we break the stigma is by having conversations about the reality. I was able to serve, went to the Marine Corps Command Staff College. had many great times doing amazing things, went on to law enforcement, counterterrorism. And then after service, I came to the point of realizing that I could not continue doing the things I wanted to do because of my disabilities, because of my mental health disabilities. Something that as Latinos, we don't necessarily speak about too much, right? When you come back home, you figure, you know, your parents immigrated here to do something better. And when it's all said and done, it's like, hey, you know, Davey, are you good? Right? And the answer is always C, right? There is no, I'm not good. And I think breaking the stigma of being able to have a conversation begins that process, right? Why do you have a service dog? What does that mean, right? Let's talk about these things. So part of what I think is amazing about this conversation today, highlighting our heritage, it's that we have a strong bond, our culture, the future, right? That hope, la esperanza. And part of that, I think, here also is looking to the future. As veterans, as Latinos, sadly, sometimes when we leave service, we live in the past, right? Our best days are behind us. What we do at veteransnetwork.club, my mission in collaborating and being here today is to begin to talk about the future. So the mention that was put forward is I've been successful in a lot of different things when it comes to investment, blockchain technology. I just got back from Dallas last night on the red eye, doing an engagement down there at the Dallas Cowboys stadium with some professional athletes, talking about veterans and enabling relationships for our businesses. I say that to say that part of the future, what esperanza means, it's a hope of what's ahead. And when it comes to our community as Latinos, what we need to hopefully begin to talk about is that, yes, we did amazing things in service. Yes, the system, you know, is creating and doing amazing things as many have spoken, but also beginning to share and talk about what is available, beginning to look at that there are other things ahead of us, and that veterans should not be left behind as things begin to change in technology. Having a technology background, we should be able to talk about not only benefits, but once you have those benefits, let's talk about the future. And for many of our veterans, and especially Latinos, it's hard to talk about stuff because you don't want to ask for help, right? I don't understand blockchain. I don't understand cryptocurrencies. I don't understand investment, right? I don't come from that. This is not what we came here to do. And part of that process is teaching, right? Our Latin community is strong at bringing people in. As many of us know, right? You didn't have a mom, you had many moms, right? Your mother raised you and your aunt raised you and the whole community raised you. And in our community as veterans, we have to do the same. It's not just incumbent upon the VA to support and help, but it's even those on the outside collaborating to have conversations to say, I'm just like you. And despite my disabilities, despite having a service dog, I understand technology. And Juan, Pablo, Enrique, just because you're 70, just because you're 80, does not mean you cannot have a future. That does not mean that there are not better days ahead of you. You don't understand blockchain technology or investment because that's what's happening now. We'll teach you. We can have these conversations because I promise you, you did not know how to drive a car, but somebody taught you. You did not know how to use an iPhone, but somebody taught you. And I think if we start the process of talking and sharing and putting our egos aside and showing that, hey, I'm not better than you. If anything, I walk with disabilities. And we need to start breaking that stigma that begins to show that there's a hope. So I would like to just close in saying that for me, one of the things I love about this is saying that despite the fact that we might be disabled at times, we're not unable, right? As veterans, it's fun to say, you know, well, my knees are bad and my back and, you know, I jumped out of planes, but we won't talk about anxiety, depression, or PTSD because those are not the things that we're proud of because we don't want to be judged by those things, right? Like if William, for example, had a limp, you wouldn't say he's a limp. But if DP has anxiety or PTSD, would you call him that? So we internalize those things and make that our identity. And I don't think that's really what is the truth. The fact is, you may live with a limp. You may live with a bad back. You may live with a bad leg. But you also at times may be living with anxiety. You're not anxiety. You may be living with PTSD. You are not PTSD. There are many challenges that we face as Latinos, but the fact of the matter is we overcome them. But we've always done that as a team. In service, we did great things as a team. After service, we will only do that as a team, not because of the system only, because we have a tribe. So it's not just the VA, it's also those outside. So if we see gaps, let's fill them. That's why we created veteransnetwork.club, to help, not to replace. My job is to make a point to say, hey, it's not just my mom who raised me, it's my aunts and my community. So as veterans, as Latinos, we must do the same. If there's something missing, reach out. When they reached out and say, hey, DP, do you want to jump on the panel? Let's do it. We don't have a conversation with the Million Veterans Association. Let's do it. Because unless we get our hands in and help and share, we will not advance. So again, I appreciate your time. I appreciate this space. The only thing that I would echo for Chris is I wish this was in person, because as we all know, the best part of a Latino gathering is the food. And Lord Almighty, I am missing some of the food that we would have been enjoying right now if we were in person. But that will definitely be for the future. But thank you all for your service. Again, it is okay to not be okay. If you are seeing this, the fact of the matter is our past does not define our future. We've made it this far. We can go further, and we owe it to the person to our left and to our right and those that are coming after us in service to be able to tell our story and be able to reach up and help them move forward. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, David, for sharing your story. And I have to tell you, you definitely made me hungry. So we need to make sure that next time we are together,
yes,
enjoying our food. All right, so we're moving to our final panelist. She's not able to be with us, but I do want to talk about her. Her name is Maricel Salazar. She is actually right at this moment in an international trip. And I'll just read her bio, and if you guys have any questions, just let us know, and we'll make sure that she's able to address them. Maricel Salazar is a Latina, New York City-based food writer, restaurant critic, cook, and recipe developer for publications like the Michelin Guide, Sagat, Wine Enthusiast, Trillis, Pour Wow, and more. She's the creator of the guide's popular column Eating Off Duty, what celebrated chefs eat outside the kitchen. She's been featured on the New York Times Cooking and do recipe development, digital videos for the Sprout Eat, Food 52, The Leash, BuzzFeed, Tasty, Tastemade, and more. She's a member of the National Association of Hispanic Journalists and the New Women's Press Club of New York. Additionally, she's also a member of the International Association of Culinary Professionals. Her specialties are traditional to modern Latino foods and fun. She is originally from Panama and part Cuban. She loves and has fun pairing wines with her food. And she's also you can catch her at Food and Wine's newest show, Beat the Recipe. She's the host for Hello Fresh, latest mini digital series, Fresh Taken on Takeout. She's also the co-host and producer, and focuses on the effects of COVID-19 on the restaurant industry. Unfortunately, we couldn't have Maricel with us today, but we thank her for her service in the Latino community, and we wish her the best. So this concludes our program. I'm going to hand it off to Mr. William.
I want to thank everybody for being part of this event. Sorry we had a little technical difficulties at the beginning, but I think we overcame some of those. Again, this is the year of 2021, Hispanic Heritage Month, a brand new year, new challenges, and let's move forward. Thank you again for participating in this event. I want to thank the Hispanic Heritage Month Committee for helping us with all this, putting this full event of information. This is a great information event, so I hope you can digest it, and it's going to be later on, I guess, reproduced, so you'll be able to learn a little bit more in detail what each speaker gave us a little piece, so we can take it and move forward. Again, it's up to us. So Esperanza, hope is up to us to make an action. Thank you very much, and see you next year.